Lubie, I'm happy that you took this into consideration because I was thinking you would be the hardest guy to move off of this mark. We discussed this briefly yesterday. I'm looking at my alarm clock every morning and thinking, why is this set for 5:30? This is the age of streaming. We're just clinging to an old concept here about morning drive radio that is no longer relevant. People don't even go to work anymore. Now, that was one of the few, if you can take positives away from the COVID-19 period of time, that was one thing, this change, transformation, where there wasn't so much pressure on you to get up in the morning, go flying out of the house, get immersed into just hideous traffic, get all nerved out about driving to work, and by the time you get there, you're a schwitzing, psychotic mess. And then right away, the boss starts screaming at you about something you didn't finish up correctly yesterday, and you just have a miserable day. Here you have a cup of coffee, you pet the dog, maybe even take it for a walk, like you were doing, and you say, wow, life is good.
The time! Wake up with Defo, joined by Lubie. Welcome to the Defo Show.
The time! Got to get a new time, man. New start time. I like it already, Lubie. I was up and at 'em very early on. I mean, too much time to prepare for a show like this.
Exactly, Jack. Prepared.
But when I looked at the clock this morning and I said, hey, 6:30, and I can still sleep for a little while if I really want to. It was absolutely fantastic. Hope you guys caught on to the time change here of the show. Anybody who tuned in at 7 o'clock, we're sorry we weren't there. But nonetheless, this will be it from now on. We begin things at 8 o'clock. We'll go to about 9:45 every day with the Defo Show. And then 10 o'clock, you can go to nofilter.net if you want to catch the live version of our No Filter show, which is the morning briefing. And it is brief. So, we try to get a lot of the stuff that we languished over here on this show in a very condensed fashion, maybe even throw in some new stuff. So that goes at 10 o'clock every day. And then, of course, 12 o'clock, continuing with Mike Mayo's Lunchbox. Is that on the road today? Yeah, am I correct in assuming that? Okay. Prezzo's, that's in Boca Raton. What, Military Trail?
Well,
Is that location?
I just know it's a Burt Rappaport special, which always is a good time.
Any Burt Rappaport restaurant is always worth, a trip, no matter how far you have to travel. And in this case, we're looking at 12 o'clock post time, Mike Mayo's Lunchbox. So that's our new schedule. 8 o'clock every day with the Defo Show, 8 till 9:45. 10 o'clock, our No Filter, nofilter.net, the morning briefing. And then 12 o'clock every day, the Mike Mayo Lunchbox Show. And that's what we're doing until we get our license to steal off the ground, which... I would like to do that because, Lubie, after being in Atlantic City, I mean, it only reinforced my opinion that we were just off and running in a wrong direction. Okay, all right, no, very good. We got John Congemi going to join us here in a few minutes, and we always welcome John's opinion. Looked great on TV again, and what a beautiful game he had to talk about there.
For them, oh Jesus, all that they've had to deal with.
What was that now?
That must have been a fun time for them. All that group, the Finsiders, have had to deal with for the last 10 plus years. Are you kidding me?
Well, I was thinking this because it's about 2 years ago. I guess it's September 21st. I do remember the date was the day that I got the call from the program director right after we finished up a show on 940 Wins. It was during the COVID time, working at home. I was just thinking about how wonderful things were. Everything was going great. We had a good show that day, and it was a Tuesday morning a couple of years ago. And I get the call, and it's always weak. And, the people are really gutless that work in this business. I mean, they're about to make probably, I would have to say, I don't know necessarily that it so much was a reflection on us, but they're about to make one of the dumbest decisions that you could ever make if you wanted to be in the game here and compete as a sports radio station. Now they're carrying the Miami Dolphins on 940, although the deal was really to have them on a station called Big 105.9, which is an FM station. All of the teams want to be on FM radio. In fact, it was interesting with my flight delayed there, canceled originally Saturday night out of Atlantic City. I'm at the airport in Atlantic City on Sunday morning, and I pick up, they don't have the post there, so I pick up a copy of the Daily News. And they had an article actually about how baseball on the radio is completely dead, that it's finished. That whole era of listening to Ernie Harwell, if you were a Detroit Tigers fan, or the great Vin Scully, obviously he passed away. Everybody had their favorite announcers. Mine growing up was Mel Allen. We had Red Barber and Phil Rizzuto. And you had their voices still entrenched in your head. I mean, I can still hear Mel saying, going, gone. And that's going to do it. Another Yankee win for baseball in Ballantyne. It was something that was part of your consciousness, and this was ingrained in you. It was kind of like having a friend, that you could listen to on the radio. That's all gone. There was a very eloquently written article about how with streaming and the way that games are being dispensed and distributed and transmitted, AM radio not even being in cars, although there's some kind of legislation going. How long do you think it's going to take them to decide on that one, Lubie? Whether or not cars should have AM radios in them. They can't even figure out whether to keep the government going, the way things are going. We still face, it seems like this crisis comes up, every 6 weeks? Where, there's going to be a government shutdown if these Republicans don't fall into line. And they're saying, we're not going to spend money like this. What, are you kidding me? Money for the Ukraine is tied to this thing. Why can't the legislators in America, this is the big democracy, the free country, we're the standard by which all others should look to. And why is it they always have these cockamamie things where, you attach something like a drive to, save the whales to some bill that is going to somehow lower gas prices.
Yeah.
What is that? We're going to convert whale blubber into fuel or something? Well, what is the connection? There is none. But with all of this happening, how long do you think it's going to take them to decide whether or not to have AM radios be mandatory in cars, Libby?
No, please.
I would imagine that's a losing proposition. As is, what a decision this was 2 years ago by the program director and I guess higher ups at iHeart Media to get rid of all local programming and look at the year that South Florida sports is enjoying. If you were doing Spanish radio right now, you'd want to convert to sports.
Yes,
because there has never been more enthusiasm in this town, and look what's going on here. Right, we have the returning Heat who are in the NBA Finals. They're getting ready to go into their preseason in short order. The Panthers are already playing, and they made it to the NHL Finals, Stanley Cup Finals last year. They're already playing exhibition games. The Dolphins are looking like the best of the 3-0 teams, and there are only 3 of them in the National Football League. 3 games into the season, you have the 49ers. Philadelphia Eagles won last night. The Eagles have not been overwhelmingly impressive, and yet you're thinking, all right, this is a very good team. By the way, that draft pick of Jalen Carter, when he fell because of this whole business that took place in Georgia, which not condoning, anything that happened, any activity that this guy was a part of, yes, we are talking about very young people. They're doing something that's stupid. We've all done it. In this case, it turned out to be catastrophic. It was tragic. Jalen Carter's stock slips in the draft. I guess, was there something else also with Jalen Carter besides that driving incident?
Well, it was a car thing. Someone died.
Yeah.
So it was like a whole thing, and it was like hanging over his head.
What a fucking player, though, man. Wow. So if anything, you'd figure the Eagles would be even better because defense was their strong point last year. Jalen Hurts had a great year. Offensively, they were fine, but the defense was what was particularly devastating and supposedly carrying this team. And it hadn't been all that razor sharp in the first couple of games, but they were good last night. The Philadelphia Eagles put on a strong performance, ended up winning handily by a couple of touchdowns. So they're 3-0, but haven't been nearly as impressive as the Dolphins with 2 road victories. One over the Chargers, who were supposed to be a dynamo this year and finally got a victory. And one over the Patriots, who were kind of down. They're in a downward cycle after all of those wonderful years, 20 years, 2 decades of dominance with Tom Brady. But nonetheless, you beat the Patriots on the road. I don't care, how good you are by comparison. Still not an easy thing to do. And then this blowout, bludgeoning over what was supposed to be a desperate Denver Bronco team who looked like they just flat out quit in the game. And, the big issue was whether or not McDaniel should have gone for the field goal and tied the record for the most points ever scored ever in an NFL game in the history of the league. As it was, this was the most points put on the board, the 70 by the Dolphins since 1966, which was the year of their inception, wasn't that?
Yes.
Came in the league. Now that's not just a Dolphin total. That was the most points scored in the league since 1966. Think about that, 34 plus 23.
Well, you think about all the offense. Like, they were talking about it during the game, and Trent Green was sort of blown away. He's like, really? Like, remember that Minnesota Vikings offense, the Rams offense, the Chiefs offenses that they've had. The Patriots had an offense that was freaking ridiculous. Like, the last 20 years alone, there's been some of the best offenses we've ever seen, and they never near what the Dolphins did yesterday.
And it was slick, and it was clever, and it was innovative, and it was effective on all fronts. Tua starts the game 16 of 16 in the first half. Mostert is running like he's the second coming of Jim Brown. It was like Jim Brown meets Mercury Morris. I mean, just a power back with overwhelming speed and moves. That was fantastic. The offensive line, which was supposed to be so suspect, is helping them put up enormous numbers of points virtually every game. Yep. I guess it wasn't a huge total in the Patriot game, but good enough to win handily. And what they have, 40-something in the game against the Chargers. So, you're looking at a team that has been an offensive juggernaut. Right now, clear cut to Tua Tagovailoa, and he has the lowest odds to win the league MVP if he can sustain this. He certainly will win it in a runaway, even over Patrick Mahomes, who has had, not a shaky start by any standard, but the team itself is not nearly as good as it was at the end of last season. The Kansas City Chiefs aren't striking fear into the hearts of virtually everybody. And this Tyreek Hill is the most exciting receiver you've seen in a long, long time. Probably. I mean, this is saying a lot considering we had Clayton and Duper and many other. You had Paul Warfield here, but he was not really the Paul Warfield that he was with Cleveland. He was as classy a receiver as he was. He was almost a decoy in the Don Shula offense. But Tyreek Hill, you would have to say, has been the most exciting receiver. I know it's easy to say that because he's the guy that's here now. Oh. Is he not the most exciting receiver that we've had in Dolphins history? Tyreek Hill. And living up to it.
They didn't have Waddle. I know you only got to watch some of the game.
Waddle out too.
Think
about that. Right, and that's pretty incredible when you think about it. If they can sustain this, which is saying a lot. Amen. You have a real acid test coming up this week. We'll get into it with John here in just a few minutes, but. Buffalo Bills on the road. The Bills had a horrible game. Their first game, Josh Allen was just absolutely puking, as we like to say, handing out picks like it was bar mitzvah invitations he was giving away. Ugly game, and they lose, and everybody soured on the Buffalo Bills, but they've come back with two really, really strong performances since then, and now going on the road against Buffalo. This will be a real litmus test for the Miami Dolphins. We'll find out if, and even if they lose this game, they still come out of the first four games, the first sort of quadrant of the football season, in really good shape. As 3-1 is nothing to sneeze at in the NFL, and it would be no disgrace if they ended up losing that game. But how could you go against them at this point?
I mean, coming in, and I know we'll bring John on in a second, but John was one of those people like Perk who has sort of a side like. People like me who thought the Dolphins could win 12, 13 games, people were a little concerned because the first four games were going to be tough. It was 3 out of 4 on the road. Three of the teams were either playoff teams or playoff contenders. And the fourth team is a Broncos team that brought in Sean Payton and was going to overhaul the Nathaniel Hackett garbage. And it was going to be 4 really tough games. They capped it off the first 3 with a 70-point bloodbath. Like
a 50-point win, right?
I mean,
you could have been getting 49 with the Broncos and still lose. We'll get into that too. I had an interesting betting adventure. Even though it was a small amount of money, it really does go to prove. I mean, the way I reacted to these games and was behaving in the sports book there at Harrah's in Atlantic City really does illustrate the point that if you put even $5 on a ball game, it changes your perspective on everything. All right, we want to get into a really level-headed perspective here, and a guy that does a great job on everything he does. And it's always a pleasure to welcome this man to the program. Brought to you by Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill. That's right there at Key Largo. You get past all of that stuff, Florida City. Don't stop at a gas station, as we were saying, and get a sandwich. Just roll a little bit further, and on the right side there, as you're heading south, boom, there's Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill. You can get everything that you want there and more, and it's all exquisite. We welcome to the show the great John Congemi. John, how are you, my friend? It was good seeing you yesterday.
Oh, good seeing you as well. Good listening to you guys. I couldn't agree with you more on some of the points you guys made about the Dolphins. It's incredible the start that they've had, and it's fun to watch as a fan. When you were trying to be creative on how you interpreted losses over the last, decade. It's fun just to say, wow, they were the best team, not only on the field today, but they could be the best team in the National Football League through 3 games. I think they are.
Yes, and doing enough defensively to be impressive. That first game was a little ugly, as we were teasing Mike Mayo. The number of yards that they gave up on the rushing game made you wonder what the heck this whole hoopla was over Fangio coming in as a defensive coordinator. He did take some measures to correct that in that second game of the season, and they were much more effective. But defensively, I mean, Van Ginkel's playing great. You have any number of other guys that are just dancing all over the fields in celebration. And the offense, that was his entertaining. It looked like the Globetrotters against the Generals, didn't it? I mean, everything they did, I was waiting for Tua to throw a bucket of confetti at someone on the sidelines. That was fantastic. They're up in the stands. They're doing everything.
No look. Tua did a no look for a touch.
Unbelievable.
He threw a shovel pass with his right hand, a shovel pass with his left hand. I mean, it was, through the legs, around the back. It was sensational. And then Tyreek Hill, I don't know. Do they not know that he's really good and really fast, and they have to do something different than just let him go in motion and get a full, head of steam, and everybody just backs off, and it allows him so much room that he's really going, untouched in terms of getting to where he's supposed to be in the route, and the ball's gone because of that. So Tua's jersey and pants were clean all day, and then you've got Raheem Mostert and Devon Achane. I guess Devon ran so fast he started dropping the I in his name now. It's Achan now instead of Achane. So yes. He runs for over 200 yards. And it was just, once you thought they couldn't top themselves, they did it. And then they did it again. And then the defense is starting to come alive too. I think they're getting comfortable with what they want to do at linebacker and playing long a lot more. Getting Van Ginkel into the mix a little bit more, getting Kohu on the edge, who tackles really well as a complement to the other side with X. This is a dangerous football team, and anytime you can kick, 10 extra points, you're doing pretty good.
Yeah, 70, I mean, close to the record. And it's interesting to think that you have a team where the big story was whether or not Mike McDaniel should have gone ahead for the record or taken a knee. In deference to the Gator flop, I think he absolutely did the right thing in that spot there because, he explained it in his usual Nietzsche-like fashion and said, we don't take the field necessarily to, set records. So we're not thinking about that. We're out there trying to win games. And, it was much more, it was a Shula-esque move, was it not? I mean, you could hear Shula from the grave saying, take a knee. And they did, which was great.
I love McDaniel's explaining something. It's almost like he gets into his eyes drop, his head drops, his words start to slow, and then somebody goes cattle prod, and then you hit him with it, and he finishes the sentence. It's crazy, true, but he's so methodical the way and cerebral the way he thinks about coaching and players and mentality and the way he treats his guys. Man, he pushes all the right buttons, and he seems like he gets the most out of his football team. And it's fun to watch because they're having fun. They're having fun on the field. They're having fun on the sidelines, and they haven't had too much of a bump in the road. I think they drug New England around a little bit, in that game where it's, could have put them away a lot easier. The first game was against a really quality opponent, and that was back and forth. And they won in different ways, guys. You got to remember the defense really held them in against New England, where the offense was so explosive against the Chargers. And, that was going to be whoever had the ball last almost you felt like was going to win until Vic Fangio, sent the dogs on Herbert and kind of ended the game with the defense. So this has been a team that, although we were talking about how explosive they've been on offense, you have to remember midway point, during that game at Hard Rock Stadium, McDaniel goes for it on fourth down. They get stuffed. It's 21-10 at the time. They get the ball. Denver and Russell Wilson tees it up at the Dolphins' 33-yard line. And they go 3 plays for -7 yards and have to punt the football back to the Dolphins. They turn around and, turn it into points. Van Ginkel gets a fumble recovery. Holland has 2 strips of the football, 2 forced fumbles. Kohu picks up the other one. Van Ginkel almost scores, gets it down to the 3, and Mostert waltzes into the end zone. It's just, complimentary football. When the offense goes for it and they don't get it, man, the defense gets it right back and kind of turned a game that felt like it was in hand already. It could have been different at 21-10. They go down and score. It's 21-17. You're going, oh man, we're playing our lights out, and we have a 4-point lead. So that was kind of fun to watch the Dolphins, get themselves and kind of keep on the accelerator and keep going and really create separation between them and the Broncos.
Sensational performance. Even their post touchdown celebration was as well coordinated.
Yeah, that was awesome.
A celebration as I've ever seen, I believe. Well, we've had all kinds of stuff. I mean, individuals have come up with stuff. You had the Iggy Shuffle. You had Ocho Cinco with the River Dance. That was great. Of course, Dion with the high stepping. But I don't know that I've seen a team coordinated dance like that. And, it speaks to, your reference to the idea that the team is literally very together and having fun. I mean, those kind of things come about from a level of confidence. And, we were always speculating, well, is Tua able to do this or Tua able to do that? It does appear, I mean, from those kind of moments, especially, that, it's a club that really has a deep-rooted belief in Tua Tagovailoa, that he's a guy that can, lead them to a championship, and sustain this level of play. As I don't even want to say it. Do we throw in the cliche? As long as he stays healthy, which
I think he's going to. I mean, if teams
he looks
can't
stronger
figure out
this year too, doesn't he?
He's bigger. He's stronger. If teams can't figure out how to reroute Tyreek Hill and how to slow down those Dolphin options at the line of scrimmage when they motion to get leverage and make it easier for the pass game, it's going to be a long season for opposing defenses, and it's going to be a season where Tua is not touched very much unless somebody completely whiffs on a pass coverage, on a pass blocking, or they misidentify at the line of scrimmage, or you have some injuries up front that kind of derail what they're doing. I don't see Tua taking many hits because the ball's been gone under 2 seconds consistently. And the funny thing, guys, I think CBS Sports had this somewhere online. I was looking at it, and it's a wild coincidence that through 3 games last year and this year, Tua's 3-0. The Dolphins are 3-0. Tua gets a large part credit for that. But pass attempts and completions, 72 out of 101 both years.
Wow.
And 8 touchdowns to 2 interceptions through 3 games. They don't now, the yards necessarily going to differ because they've been very explosive this year. But it goes to show you, I think last year they started out well protected, ball out on time, offensive explosiveness, until they hit the Bills game where he ended up being concussed, where he got sacked and pressured and different style of defense. Now, I don't think the Bills are the Bills of last year, the year before that. There's a little bit of a tarnish on what we think of the Bills are this year, but I think the Dolphins have raised their level, which creates some separation between the two teams. Now, does that carry over when they get to Orchard Park and the crazy fans and they hit adversity, something happens in the game? Can they right the ship, or do they just continue and make the Bills chase them all game? That's where you'd like to see the game played, where it's not back and forth, but the Dolphins have a 10-point lead. They have a 13-point lead, and Josh Allen needs to press the accelerator because that's when he makes mistakes.
Yep.
Yeah, it's obviously a huge litmus test here. And as you said, I mean, it came upon the same set of circumstances somewhat last year. I keep hearing Burgess Meredith in my head, and it was a philosophy, speaking of the Big Chill, of the great Jimmy Johnson. And that is, you need speed.
Yep.
And the Dolphins have been talking about that for a while. All teams seem to want to address that in a modern age of professional football. And if this isn't one of the fastest teams that you've seen, especially on the offensive side, you have probably, I mean, if they did a race, a 40-yard dash, you'd have Mostert right there.
You'd have a tie with 4 players or 5 players.
Yeah.
That's how fast they are.
Yeah, he's lane 4, in the finals there. And now, how are you pronouncing this kid's name now? I never knew how to pronounce it in the first place.
I'm going with Achan, I think it is now.
Achan, okay.
A-Chain was all, through the last month and a half.
Yes.
I'm going to just call him A-Chain until somebody tells me,
I want to call him Tony Dorsett because you know
Yeah.
what, he looks very promising, and then that was another one of those strange things that people immediately start to question, what are they drafting a running back for? They got all of these other guys. What happened to Jeff Wilson, by the way? I haven't seen
He's
much of
been
him.
on
Is he
IR for 4 weeks. He had
okay?
an injury in training camp, but I thought he might be trade bait in terms of getting something else in the secondary if he needed, or maybe another offensive lineman, or I don't know where the guy's going to fit right now, because it wasn't like Ahmed was playing poorly when he had his opportunities. He looked fantastic in the preseason, and he carried it over into the regular season. So you've got three backs right now, and plus you've got Brooks, who's the bigger back that came in and ripped off I don't know how he had a 52-yarder as his long in the game, late in the game. So you've got a great stable of running backs, and you didn't even talk about adding Jeff Wilson to the mix. I don't know where he fits.
Yeah. No, it's amazing the depth that they have at that position, at a position where a lot of teams have considered running backs to be interchangeable. You have a cachet of guys that are all dangerous, including, the 4-touchdown man himself. And later on in the program, we'll have his agent on, Brett Tesser, just by coincidence, been doing shows with us forever. And now his guy is, among the stars in the league and very much in the spotlight in terms of offensive player of the week and player of the month considerations. This guy has been fantastic so far. All right, after you played a long time, a lot of different levels, football, John Congemi. After and this happens in a lot of sports. After a razor sharp performance, there's a tendency to think, okay, this is easy. We're going to be able to duplicate it and replicate it time after time. The old Cyndi Lauper thing, but sometimes there's a big a letdown after that. You couldn't have had a more perfect performance by the offense. So how do you guard against that if you're going into preparation for a road game? Or is it just, in your opinion, John, that the Dolphins have so much talent that this should be the norm, to expect that type of thing on a somewhat regular basis?
I think more of the latter, Defo and Lubie, because Mike McDaniel and this Miami Dolphin team have set a standard for themselves. And it's not, hey, let's get 30 again today, or let's get 40, or let's get X amount of first downs or explosive plays. Their standard is Super Bowl and winning the Super Bowl. And they want to be able to go out each and every week and play to the level that will accomplish that standard. And I don't care. It's almost like a faceless opponent every week. Yes, you're preparing for different defensive ends and the way corners play with leverage. And, we've got to double this guy at the point of attack if we're going to try to run the ball here. I think that they're going up against their standard every week. And do they meet their level of accomplishment? Are we playing at a high percentage in the pass game? Are we getting a certain amount of explosive plays when they're there? Are we blitzing at a certain percentage that it doesn't expose us somewhere on defense? They've got their they've got their standards at every level, on special teams, on offense, and on defense. And I think they're playing against themselves in terms of, are we reaching these milestones? And if we are, man, you got to look way in the distance in the rearview mirror to find the other team, because we should be well ahead of our level of play. And I think that's where their focus is. Yes, you're game planning for Buffalo, and you're game planning for Sean McDermott, what he's going to do on defense and how they're going to utilize Allen in the run game, because he's run all over the Miami Dolphin defense. Every time he plays him, he averages 70 yards, I think, a game on the ground, or some outrageous number. But they're playing against themselves and what their expectations are. And I think that they've exceeded those through 3 games, because I didn't have them winning on the road against the Chargers. I had them beating New England, and I had them beating Denver, and then going on the road and maybe going through the first 4 games at 2-2. And that would have been okay. They would have still been in the mix. They would be right on schedule, but they have a chance to go 4-0 and really put everybody, a couple of games behind them. And that's a good thing for the way to start the season for the Miami Dolphins.
You also mentioned, they got off to the same kind of start last year. Ended up 9-8. which was a disappointment. He did have Tua missing 4 games out last year, and
Yeah, they lost 5 in a row during that road stretch out
yeah.
west, and yeah,
When the schedule got to a more challenging level, although as we know, and I don't even think it's cliche anymore to say that literally any win in the National Football League is something to go ahead and take account of, because look at Dallas, that they were cruising.
Yeah.
2-0, looked like a juggernaut, and they lose to Arizona, a team that we think is tanking,
Yep.
who blew like a 20-some-odd point lead against the Giants just the previous week, and their fans were pacified with the idea that, okay, good, Caleb Williams is coming to us. But, and then they go out and they literally put a beating on the Dallas Cowboys, where Jerry was already, making reservations at Caesars for the penthouse up there, getting ready to host his Super Bowl parties, and all of a sudden that gets derailed. Of the 3 teams that are 3-0, and not to discount teams that are 2-1 or even 1-2 at this stage, because a lot of things could change over the course of the rest of the season, but you would have to say San Francisco obviously represents a threat. They seem like a well-rounded, very professional team on both sides. I mean, offense and defense. They seem to make very smart plays. They're clutch. Enough talent, and standout talent at certain positions to be a big factor all the way. Philadelphia, I mean, we saw what they did last year. They're not as sharp this year so far, but maybe in a position where they could round into form over the course of time. Is it fair to say, and not just because we're here in South Florida, John, and obviously you've been with the team for many, many years, covering them with the Finsiders and now with the CBS 4. And once again, remarkable that you could be at that stadium all day on like a 95-degree day, and down on the field there, it's 10 degrees warmer for sure. I mean, it's sizzling hot.
It's
I remember
hot
standing
the
down
field.
there. I used to do those on-field announcements. I've said this many times. One time I was on a field for like a late September game, before the game even started. Like, it's not even 1 o'clock yet. And I was wearing a pair of, rarely would I ever have like what would be considered dress shoes on, but for some reason I was wearing like a regular pair of shoes. I had to do something where I was, had to actually show up in like a shirt and tie before the ball game. And I remember I was thinking, what is wrong with me? My feet actually were on fire.
Oh, wow.
Just standing there. But how you could look so good, like 10 hours after being at the stadium, is pretty remarkable. I mean, you looked
I felt
every bit as
bad
good
for
as
the
it gets.
Denver. They had 3 guys doing a Denver pregame show, and they all had jackets and suits on, no ties. They after the half hour was up, they all got up. They took their jackets off, and there was nothing but soaking wet, schwitzing from neck all the way down to the dress socks through the pants. It was. I hope they had a change of clothes or just had a chance to go do something, because they had to be miserable. It was so hot. It's so hot on the opposing sideline where they have the media compared to
on
the
the sun
Dolphin sideline. It's at least 20 to 25 degrees hotter from the Dolphin sideline to the visiting sideline.
I used to sit in some lower bowl seats there, right around the 50-yard line. That one of my sponsors, the great people at Deal Volkswagen, are gracious enough to give me for the Patriots games that the Mustang wanted to attend, and you could not sit there. You couldn't sit in the seats.
Yeah.
But you look, I mean, you sparkle right through all of that, John.
We're trying, man. We're trying hard. Boy, after that light goes off, we sprint to the shade. That's for sure.
Yeah, and we were saying earlier, I mean, it was right around, I was in Atlantic City when the 2-year anniversary rolled around of us getting dumped by 940 Wins. And, here was now what is one of 2 all-sports stations in town. Can you imagine? I mean, I keep thinking, I mean, how do we top this? What's been going on this year? It's in the greatest year of South Florida sports in the history of the area. Going all the way back, Henry Flagler hadn't even decided to lay some tracks down. We haven't had a year like this in sports. Perfect time to have like no local sports programming on your sports talk stations. I mean, it's insane what's happened here, and the Dolphins continue to perpetuate that. I don't know if you caught, and I only caught a little of this out of the corner of my eye. It was, like a very distant consideration for the people in the sports book. I don't know if a lot of people were betting Miami Temple. I think there was like a 23-point line on something in that area. Canes were favored. I did catch some of it, and I saw some highlights later on. So far, I mean, sort of surprising to me. I mean, it does look like, I don't want to jinx it, but it looks like Mario Cristobal, widely criticized for not doing much of a job last year, maybe has orchestrated or at least begun to spin the wheels of some kind of positive turnaround.
Well, they look more organized. They look more like what you would expect in year two for Mario Cristobal. The offensive line has gotten better. They've changed coordinators, I think, on Van Dyke maybe 3 times in
Yeah.
3 years. And they found something that's closer to when he was a freshman. And I think that's helped him. I think they've gotten better at wide receiver. I think Jason Taylor's helped the defensive front enormously. Um, I think that they've kind of found their mojo, so to speak, in terms of playing with a little bit more confidence and a little less with the mental errors or stupid plays that give you 15-yard unsportsmanlike conducts, even though they still have one safety that's going to get one every game.
Yeah.
That's been playing there for 3 or 4 years now. They're playing with more confidence, and I think they're playing with that swagger you like to see with more consistency. You hated to see them play with swagger and then continually kick themselves, in the backside because of mistakes, mental mistakes and physical mistakes. They're trimming those, and I think the level of competition other than Texas A&M has allowed them to play early with confidence and get ready for, a trip maybe to North Carolina or Virginia or somewhere where it's going to be in, down to the fourth quarter within a touchdown. Now, do those qualities you showed early in the season, do they continue to bleed through, or is it more of the same from last year? That's going to be the threshold for Miami, to that hurdle to get over. Can they overcome the shortcomings of what's held them back over the last couple of seasons in terms of mental and physical mistakes when they get in a game with an opponent that has equal talent to them? They did it against Texas A&M. Texas A&M blew the game early. They had that kid on the 5-yard line. All he has to do is catch the ball and go north, and he hits his head on the goalpost. He decides to go outside. They hold him to a 10-point, field goal, and they had a 10-point lead. Gave Miami some confidence to get back in the game, and they took advantage. And then they were the better team for the majority of that game. It'll be interesting when they play a team that's of equal talent and they get into a tight game. Which team shows up? The team that plays with confidence and less mistakes, or the team that's still not sure of themselves and kicking themselves in the foot?
Certainly seem less chaotic. I mean, as you said, the caliber of competition outside of Texas A&M not giving you a tremendous indicator as to just how good they're going to be. But at least in these spots, they are looking sharp. And last year, it seemed like there was just pandemonium, both offensively and defensively. And as you also alluded to, John, they were still doing all of these gesticulations and gyrations after every play, as if they would stop a guy finally after giving up 87 yards on a drive and dancing and prancing around the field. And then on the very next play, the guy would go in and score. And you're like,
what happened?
Yeah.
How about FSU, Clemson?
We're going to get into that. Yeah, we want to get into that because I wanted to. I was concerned, and there were many people, even in Atlantic City, as far away as Atlantic City, New Jersey, that were concerned about the well-being of one Mike Lubitz, as it appeared that FSU was going to go down in flames in that game to Clemson, and somehow managed to pull it off. And at the end of that ball game, I mean, when that kid missed the field goal. Maybe it's karma in reverse. Bobby Bowden having some kind of influence from the grave on kicks by the opposition after getting kicked in the ass. I mean, literally had a pigskin shoved right up his rear end all of those years. I mean, how close was this guy to maybe one of the monstrous, if he didn't already have a brilliant coaching careers of all time? I mean, a couple of field goal tries away from multiple national championships that he was deprived of. It's incredible. So we'll get into that and talk college and pro football all the way around the slate. Local teams obviously doing well. The Gators, a bit of a surprise also so far this year, I think, after that abysmal start against Utah. And I literally had to schwitz out that Ohio State game against Notre Dame.
Oh no, you had that game.
This was one of the more bizarre finishes, and it shows you how gambling has changed everything in terms of your perspective. And we were talking about this a little bit yesterday, John. I mean, $5 on a ball game, and everything becomes monumental, of paramount importance. Every little decision, including them putting a half a second back on the clock there, which it essentially ruined everybody.
Yeah.
As the game ended up as a push as a result of that. All right, we'll get into all of that. Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill, though. I can't wait to get down there. And it'll be a lot of fun, doing all of the shows down there from Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill. Great place. Our memories of being there, John, are nothing but spectacular. When you can still envision like a dish coming out of the kitchen, like that was a year and a half ago we were down there. And I tried the Italian fisherman pizza for the first time, somewhat reluctantly also, because I was thinking, what are they going to put on there? Squid? It was so mind-blowing, as was everything else. I think people aren't necessarily expecting, and this largely due to your brother, that level of high-end quality when it comes to the food, whether you're talking about the casual stuff or even the fine dining that they have available to you as well.
Yeah, I think that's what makes the Big Chill so special. You can pop in and get a pizza and go to the Tiki Bar and kind of enjoy the breezes of South Florida and the Keys, or get some fine dining in the restaurant, or just watch a game at the sports bar. You've got plenty of options there, which makes it unique. And it's so close to Miami and Fort Lauderdale. From where I'm at, it's probably an hour and 15 minutes down. And as soon as you get to Key Largo, you just lean to the right and you see Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill, and it's right there, and you kind of feel at ease when you get on property, and they treat you with first class service, and you mentioned the first class food. So you throw in the views of that Bayside, and you've got a winner at Jimmy Johnson's at any time of the year, especially during football season. They have the big screens outside. For Monday Night Football, you had probably 2 games last night you can enjoy outside and kind of kick back and relax. So that's the place to be in the Keys for me.
No, they've kind of redone things with regard to, are they not putting in some kind of like sort of stadium setting there?
Seating kind of for Monday Night Football. And
wow.
I think on the weekends, it's been crazy at the sports bar, and the Tiki Bar has been doing great. So yeah, it's a theater type atmosphere down at Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill for the football games, and can't wait to get back down there with you guys.
Well, and she is heading for the Keys, thinking we're going to watch the sunset, maybe hold hands together. And you're thinking, geez, they got that stadium seating over there at Jimmy Johnson's. We can actually do both. I can watch my games, and in between plays, go, hey, sweetie, sunset, beautiful, man. Sure is nice to be with you down here. No, it's great.
That's right.
No, and the food really is terrific. So we're looking forward to being down there. Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill. It's what is it? Mile marker 104. Is that what the number is? 104. What did they start at 100? How does that work in the Keys? Because it's right there. We were talking about. I mean, you're at a Wawa or whatever in Florida City, and you're thinking, do I really want to get like a gas station sandwich? No. Whoosh, right into Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill and have yourself a blast and some great food and drink, and a tremendous place to hang out. All right, coming back with more. John Congemi, the Pigskin Playbook. Very festive edition. Isn't it nice when your teams are winning? I mean,
it's so much smile on your face. That's for sure.
I always felt that negativity sold in this, kind of environment here, this genre, that, people just wanted to call up and bitch about everything. But it is a different feeling. It's almost as if you're literally, and not a good thing in this business, at a loss for words to describe how good it is, and find something, anything, any a little, a thing that you could criticize, but that there really hasn't been much of anything along those lines for all of the South Florida teams for some time now, and we haven't even mentioned, we're 44 minutes into the show, we haven't mentioned Messi. Which, that's another thing that was just tacked on here to the South Florida sports landscape that, wow, all of a sudden we got like the greatest player in the history of the game is playing for this schmenky team that, couldn't draw any interest whatsoever. And, we're the center of the soccer world as well. All right, coming back with more Pigskin Playbook. John Congemi with us on the Defo Show in a moment. Now that.
The time.
It's 8:44.
folks. Tony Segreto here. Let me ask you a question. What do you look for when you go out to eat? Good food, obviously, friendly atmosphere, not too loud, but good energy, reasonable prices, and a place where you feel comfortable. All those ingredients, no pun meant there, are hard to find unless you're talking about the Texas Roadhouse. You see, they encompass all of those attributes. Really, really good food, amazing atmosphere, good for a family, good for a date, or just a night out for yourself, and prices that will make you extremely happy. Their ribs unmatched, steaks hand cut every day. Everything, and I mean everything, is made on site, including their incredible bread. It's the one day, folks, that you can forget about low-carb diets. Trust me when I tell you, Texas Roadhouse, your restaurant, your destination when you say, where should we go and eat tonight?
From the newly renovated sports bar to the beautiful bayside views captured at the Tiki Bar, Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill has it all. Located at mile marker 104, the Big Chill also offers waterfront dining while experiencing breathtaking sunset views of the Florida Keys. It's simply the hottest spot in the Keys to cool off. That's Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill at mile marker 104 in Key Largo. For more information, call today at 305-453-9066.
Welcome to the show, John Congemi, who joins us for Dateline Dolphins. John, how are you, my friend?
Defo, I'm doing well, and that's not the only thing that's going to reach a new height. I'll be at about 220, 225 after this football season if we visit too much. Because the food's outstanding down at Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill.
Grab a bagel and a schmear, plus some Defo and Lubie. Welcome back to the Defo Show.
I was just trying to go through my phone here and see the many texts I sent out with my concerns about Mike Lubitz during the Seminoles game against Clemson. Now, I root against Clemson. As there are a few teams I root against. That's why it was such a difficult thing to even bet the Ohio State-Notre Dame game. Just playing into my desire to sabotage any kind of positive psyche I can have, because I hate both teams. I root against Ohio State in every game. I root for them to lose. And did you see by any chance, John, Ryan Day's post-game interview on the sidelines?
Yeah. Embarrassing.
What did you make of that? I mean, that was the guy was a psychotic mess, was he not? And then he composed himself quickly and apologized. But what was that?
I don't know. I didn't expect that from him. I mean, even if they're getting on, how did he understand what Lou said before the game that upset him?
I didn't even recognize that was Lou Holtz. I had to ask the guy next to me. I was like, that's he looked like a homeless version of Lou Holtz, did he not?
It was I don't know. I was expecting that maybe in the locker room. You know how the Colorado Oregon game, and the head coach from Oregon got his team going in the locker room. That's something you keep. I think you keep inside for your team, and you kind of after the game go. There were some things said we didn't like it as a team, and I'm glad the result. I'm glad we were able to overcome and prove it on the field. And then you go in the locker room and you go bananas with your team and kind of give them some energy that way. But yeah, I thought that was a little bizarre.
It wasn't like they spanked Notre Dame.
No.
I mean, the end of this game.
No, they were very fortunate. If Notre Dame doesn't throw a screen pass and they just run the football and they have to spend a timeout, they don't even have a chance. They don't have time to get down there.
Well, Notre Dame the last two plays had 10 defenders for 2
No, I know.
Like, I'm sorry. Like, Ryan Day, it was justified as out there as Lou Holtz has been the last 15 years. Like, it was an apt. His own.
He was accurate.
His own fans have criticized Ryan Day and his team's toughness. Literally every time they play at Georgia or an Alabama or a Clemson, they look outclassed for the most part. Like, you won by 3 on like the last play. Like, what are you talking about? Like, that was it was a weird beating of the chest. It's like, dude, you barely won.
Yeah. You're right, Defo. I wasn't really rooting for either team. I was actually rooting for a tie. If there was a chance that could be a tie, that would have been the best.
Well, I was I was getting 3 points with Notre Dame. I was very reluctant. I just thought Notre Dame at home in this game, that Ohio State always, as Lou Holtz was quick to point out, struggles a little bit in these spots. So they could still win the game, and I come away with a victory. It was the second half of a parlay that I had made on the professor's recommendation. He never recommends parlaying games, which I understand why. But he liked Washington State. Washington State against Oregon State.
Oregon State.
Right. So there, I mean, just to show you, I mean, why gamblers, once again, we often talk about how they end up dying with their mouths wide open. And we attribute it to the idea that that number flashes of how much money you lost lifetime, and that's the last thing you see, and you're like, but the fashion in which this stuff comes about is even more insane. I mean, it's enough to make you get on a dilaudid drip right there in the sports book. So Washington State is kind of handling Oregon State the entire game. They had the ukulele kid that used to be at Clemson, so Oregon State. So you're thinking, all right, a lot of times you'll see that where a guy kind of, what wasn't as successful as people would anticipate, even though he was well hyped and showed flashes of this kind of brilliance, but he ends up in another spot and ends up doing very well. So that they were a threat from that standpoint. But Washington State was very good. Their offense was shredding Oregon State's defense the entire game. They were kind of scoring and moving the ball at will. And they're up 10 with like a minute and a half to go. They give up a touchdown, so it's now 3. And you're thinking, my God, I have to survive an onside kick here just to get out of this stinking game without it going to overtime, which is the most dreaded circumstance for any gambler in most situations, unless you were behind hopelessly the whole game, and somehow you get a reprieve by going to overtime. Here comes the governor on the phone. Yeah, Whitey, don't pull the switch. So now I am parlaying this, and they're ending at about the same time, the Ohio State Notre Dame game. And it seemed like most of the money in the book was on Notre Dame. All right, so you're getting 3 points. Improbable. I mean, that series of plays at the end there, that they had been stuffed so many times on these 4th and 1s during the game that, you're thinking, it's possible they do it again. Somehow I believe that might have been a 4th down play. Was that a 4th down play when they got the pass down to the 2?
I don't know if that one. The 4th down play was earlier in the series where they get the first down by about a half yard, and then I think that was a 1st or 2nd down play. The seam pass down to the 1 or 2 yard line.
How does that happen, as you say? I mean, how is Tyreek Hill so wide open? How do you?
That was a great throw. That was
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know how he stopped him and back shouldered him where the receiver kind of just slows down before he runs into coverage, because if he leads him, it's either a collision or an interception.
Which I was praying for at that point, and all I needed was some kind of a stop. So now, I mean, just to show you how hairy this got. All right, so they finally scored a touchdown, and they go through lengthy replays, and it appeared clear that the guy had crossed the goal line with the ball. So I'm thinking, well, why are they looking at this 100 times? And then it hits you. Oh, no. Don't tell me they're going to put like 1 second back on the clock. Because everybody was speculating that if they scored, they would not kick the extra point. There would have been no time left. Is it mandatory in college football that you have to attempt the extra point if the time is off the clock and the game's already decided?
I don't know. I don't know. I think there is a rule about that.
Would they have called it at that point? Because I was thinking they had to at least line up for an extra point.
I thought they had a line to come back out and kick the extra point, but I'm not positive on that.
It's a dumb rule. I mean, if it's there, but with 1 second left on the clock, the guy's going to kick the extra point, be up a field goal. If there had been no time and they were forced to come out there, you were thinking, and everybody started speculating, and this was crazy. It's going on. He's going to take a knee. And there's a chant going up from the people that had Notre Dame. Take a knee. Because why risk an attempt when it's the one thing that could kill you if it gets blocked and run back? Now it's a tie game at 16.
Right.
Yep.
And look what was swinging in the balance on that. It was more money involved, I think, swinging in the balance there than there probably was when Aaron Rodgers went down, and all of the Jets fans and backers who thought they were going to the Super Bowl saw their money literally evaporate into space on the very first series. It was incredible. But, so it ended up being a push. I would imagine, that line 3 was pretty much universal. And so nobody won in the end because that 1 second they put back on the clock. And fortunately, this isn't like the old days. I don't know. Did you ever play those cards where, the parlay cards? Guy would come into the bar, some greaseball, and, say, not meaning of the Italian descent necessarily, but like a greasy looking guy.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah,
that's what I
like
thought you
it
meant.
wouldn't matter if he was Irish, Jewish, whatever. In fact, often I think this was very popular with the Jews to give out these screwball parlay cards
Yep.
where you lost if it was a push. That was my favorite aspect of that, and they were always printed like a ransom note, where the type was different sizes and everything, and the point spreads were very difficult to decipher anyway. And then if you tied in a game, even though it was
You
a
lost.
20-team parlay, you lost. Which fortunately, that's not the way it is, in sports betting today. But just insane the way that came down to this aggravating decision whether or not to put the 1 second back on the clock, and it changed the dynamic of what was being paid out in the sports books, and what money could be won or lost all across the universe. Incredible. All right, so who's good now? I mean, we still have Georgia number one. They haven't really shown the same type of dominant performances that they have in the past. Alabama, was unimpressive so far this year by their standards. And you were touting, even teams like the Cuse, which now has, an acid test coming up against what has been an underachieving or just a team that's in a downward spiral or continuing one, a Clemson team coming up this week. So what did you take away? I mean, who really stands out to you among the top teams in college football, John?
Well, I think there's not really one team that's head and shoulders above the rest. I think you can make an argument Georgia's really good, and I don't know if you can say in the Big Ten it's probably going to come down to Ohio State and Michigan again. Michigan's going to beat everybody, it seems like. Penn State's not a bad team. They're going to threaten. One of those two teams are going to go down to a fourth quarter showdown between Penn State, Ohio State, Penn State, Michigan, if and when they play. Texas and USC are very good. I don't know if there's anybody out west. Oregon could maybe give USC a run for their money with all that speed. I didn't think Oregon was going to be as good as they looked against Colorado. Now, maybe it was Colorado moving up in weight class, and you kind of go, "Wow, they're good," but they're not Oregon good yet. So there's a number.
That was a serious beating. I was watching a lot of that game. Serious beating that they administered to Prime, and I don't know. Is it the 60 Minutes jinx? He's on 60 Minutes one week, up there as if he was the Dalai Lama of football, and the next week he's getting shellacked like 42-6. Which it was speculative whether they would score. Yeah.
Well, and now they've got USC this week.
Yep.
Yes.
So it's
USC has no defense, though. We know that. I mean,
and Colorado's still without their most explosive player on both sides of the football due to injury. So the worst time of the year when you play Oregon and USC, not to have somebody to kind of roll out there and be an eraser on defense and an explosive player on offense.
All right, are you ready? I mean, you might want to gather some earmuffs for this one, but we didn't really get too deeply into that Clemson game against Florida State, which Florida State obviously considered one of the top teams. What are they, number 4 now? Florida State?
4/5.
3 or 4, 5?
Yeah.
4/5 now because being on the road doesn't matter anymore for some reason.
All right, I have to say, I was thrilled to see that kicker miss. Lubie, were you all right during the game? Because legitimate concerns for your well-being, as it looked like Clemson was going to win the game early, and then late they're sitting there. Now there was a minute and change left, so it's possible that Florida State could have gotten back into a winning position or sent the game into overtime, regardless of the outcome of that field goal. But what a shank that was! that had to be like breaking the fast after Yom Kippur for you in terms of sense of relief, Lubie. How were you feeling during this game?
I mean, at one point FSU was down a touchdown. Clemson was like around the 25, I think it was 25 to 30. The kid had already made a field goal of like 30 yards. So it's like, okay, they're already going to get a field goal. They may get a touchdown, go up 2 scores. And FSU's defense had been sort of and their offense was just, and it's something I do want to ask John about, but I'll get to it after this. But they were just sort of and Clemson was about to go up 2 scores, and they were going to go up 2 scores, whether field goal or touchdown. And Adam Fuller, a defensive coordinator I'm not a fan of, finally called a great call, like a Vic Fangio kind of a blitz, where the linebacker's actually out wide like he's a DB, Klubnik, the sophomore, didn't see it at all, even though it was a super delayed blitz. It was like 4 seconds in, and Deloach lays him out.
Yeah.
Recovery,
Scoop and score.
and touchdown, all the same dude, and that changed the game in the fact where now was a dogfight. But I still look, Clemson was going to make the field goal, and FSU was going to have the ball with about a minute 45. So I didn't think it was over. I was just shaking my head because, to me, it's what I want to ask John about. It felt like watching FSU and the Dolphins reminds me a lot of each other in the sense that it's two coaches that are really highly regarded as offensive minds, and a lot of the times, at least in the past, McDaniel finally feels like he's figuring it out. Norvell, I don't know what the fuck's going on with him, but it's really confusing to me. And it's something Defo always talks about. Don't get cute. It's like both these guys feel like they're so young and no one gives them credit and they want to earn their spot when they don't have to. Like the Knowles have like 10 to 11 different dudes that are really good at the skill position talent. Yet only 3 guys were targeted the majority of the game. And most of the throws were 20 yards or more. And it's something I don't understand when you have guys and the quick passing, and Clemson had no answer over the middle, but Jordan Travis kept chucking it. And I'm like, they kept the game closer than they had to. And the Dolphins did it versus the Patriots a lot too.
I'm going to answer that second. First, Lubie, I think the problem with FSU against Clemson is the lack of mobility from an injured quarterback really hurt the way they attacked Clemson. Because if the Knowles quarterback, if Travis could have even been 8 out of 10 in terms of health, he would have been pulling a lot of those plays that he was giving for the 1 yard gain, the tackle for loss, no gain on 2nd and 10. He's going to get 5, 6, 7, maybe more. And when he had chances to run, he had to fall down even before he started. So it took away a lot of the play calling off of the run pass options that Florida State normally has in their offense. Yeah. So you're right. The second part, I was wondering why they weren't going intermediate more in terms of, middle passing and kind of some shallow crossers to get those guys running in space. But they felt like, a high percentage of their offense was gone in terms of winning at the line of scrimmage by eliminating the quarterback run. And I think that really threw them off track in terms of they were always 2nd and 10. 2nd and 11. Yep. It was bad. It was bad management in terms of, okay, where do we go to now? Because I don't want to expose the quarterback throwing the football in the pocket. He can't escape. So let's get him back, catch it, and throw it, and let our guys make plays down the field.
That makes sense.
All right, Florida State escapes with a victory there. A nice play in overtime to get it done. And then, of course, they made the stop against Clemson. But still, Dabo hitting the ground with almost a Bobby Bowden dadgum look on his face as this thing. What a straight out shank that was too. It was unfortunate if you were a Clemson backer to see that thing go awry, but a sense of reprieve there for Florida State. And you need a little luck if you're going to win.
You need that,
especially in college football.
All good teams are
going
to need one of those.
Yeah, for sure. All right, we're going to come back in just a moment and touch on the pros one more time. The Pigskin Playbook with John Congemi, brought to you by Jimmy John's Big Chill, mile marker 104. The Overseas Highway in Key Largo, a great spot, and now also, as it was in the past, but even more so enhanced. The great atmosphere they have for watching football, college and the pros, with the new stadium setup that they have there. And you never know. I would imagine Saturday, Sunday, the Jimmer, after going out and catching some giant wahoo or something, is more than willing to come over there and down a few. And, you're sitting there watching football with the great Jimmy Johnson. That's quite a treat, and happens very frequently at Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill. All right, coming back with more with John Congemi. We'll touch on the college and pro slate for the upcoming week in just a moment. Now that. It's 9:03. The Ponies in Style at Champions, the outstanding simulcasting room at beautiful Hialeah Park. Yes, the grand old lady of thoroughbred racing has never been more vibrant, and you can wager on the races from the top tracks around the country while enjoying a cocktail at the Brass Rail Bar or any of the fine food served throughout the facility. If poker is your game, you're covered in style, and you can play all your favorite Vegas-style games, including blackjack, craps, and roulette, in Hialeah Park's sizzling hot casino. Get a player's card when you walk through the door for all kinds of generous amenities, including our favorite, free play, when you come out to the ultimate casino and entertainment destination, Hialeah Park.
These days, we're all looking for comfort anywhere we can find it. Thank goodness for Landlubbers Raw Bar and Grill in Plantation, because they are making sure you are as comfortable as possible. First of all, they're not only open for delivery and pickup. All you have to do is go to landlubbersbarandgrill.com for both pickup and free delivery. You're going to have the best wings in the world. You're going to have a great burger. You're going to have their amazing soups. Again, Landlubbers Raw Bar and Grill. It's nice and easy. Just go to landlubbersbarandgrill.com for both your pickup and free delivery. Thank goodness for Landlubbers for making you always feel right at home.
Are you looking to buy your first home? Have you been turned down for a loan? Do you need to refinance or get money out of your home? Call Michael Kodsey, CEO of Choice Mortgage. He's been helping the South Florida community get mortgages for 30 years.
Hi, this is Michael Kodsey, CEO of Choice Mortgage. We have the most competitive fixed rates in the market. Call me 24/7, 561-441-2730. And remember, I don't just work banking hours. To make the right choice for your home, call Choice Mortgage today.
Now, did you scale it back when you were head-to-head with Danny there at Augusta National? Because he doesn't like to lose.
Actually, guys, you're right. Dan doesn't like to lose in anything. And the only time I was ever able to go to Augusta, I think the Samsung guy backed out, and Danny asked me about 11:30 at night, and I put on my shoes and went to bed. And I woke up and went to Augusta, made a hole-in-one on the 16th hole. And Dan said he hit a better shot than me, so he took the tee on 17. So I let him do that. I didn't want to get
stepped in front of you after a hole-in-one.
When you add it up, I flew up on a private jet. I was going to eat for free. I played the golf course. I figured he deserves the tee on 17.
I mean, the audacity just to cut right in front of you after a hole-in-one.
Buenos dias. The cafecito is piping hot. Why not enjoy it with Defo and Lubie? It's now time for the Defo Show.
He had to, figure that he had honors, no?
He did hit a good shot. He hit a good shot.
Still a hole-in-one. I mean, we've seen Big Jack line up there, maybe needing an eagle to, get back in the mix on the final day of the Masters, and he couldn't do it. And John Congemi comes up there. What'd you hit? 6-iron, probably.
7-iron.
7-iron. Oh, my God. The muscle on this kid. 7-iron. But no, we were playing. See, now if I was at Augusta, I don't even know if can you go beyond the women's tees? That was once one of my golf instructional videos.
It's funny when you go there, they don't even allow you to really go back to the tees that they use.
Oh yeah.
At least only one time I was there. They were playing with elderly members, and they said we're going to play the members tees, and I was like, you could put the ball out on the 100-yard marker. I don't care. And, play it there. It's as long as you're there. It was great.
It's like you're teeing off at Century Village.
Right.
That, of course, that is maybe 4,000 yards in total there, and including the 19th hole.
Tough 4,000.
Golf hole, yeah. All right, John, we saw a lot of action around the National Football League, and another, every week is critical. We mentioned the Dolphins and the Bills. Watched the Bengals last night. I don't know if you caught a lot of that game. It's kind of tough now with the two games going simultaneously to keep track of both. So I was trying to make a commitment. The Bengals and the Rams, it was sort of a boring game, but it looked like Philadelphia had a handle on their opponent last night. Tampa Bay. And, Tampa Bay's offense with Baker Mayfield, they were 2-0 going into that game. And yet you were waiting for Baker Mayfield to kind of come back to the pack, which wasn't an overwhelmingly impressive offensive performance. I'm not sure that I think Todd Bowles is a great head coach, although he was always respected as a defensive coordinator, and their defense is good. But as a head coach, he hasn't really overwhelmingly impressed me, Todd Bowles. So Philadelphia looked okay. I mean, not brilliant, but more than okay. Back on stride. Cincinnati, though, was supposed to be this big juggernaut. Now, I know Burrow has been hurt. It does seem odd that you had a couple of teams where they doled out huge money for a quarterback, and it hasn't really worked out. Guys that signed extensions for a ton of cash. What did you think? I mean, 1-2, that they kind of salvaged their way out of being in that dreadful 0-3 spot, but not exactly the explosive offense that you were expecting out of the Cincinnati Bengals this year.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that has to do with the injury to Joe Burrow in training camp in terms of that calf. And anytime you go in and you sign a big contract, you want to be able to go out and perform to your expectation or to your level. And you want to be able to go out and dazzle people with your performance. I don't think he's felt like he's himself, to be honest with you. And I don't know if they've played all that well to boot, because of that offensively. And I think teams that don't start fast, like the Dolphins have started extremely fast, I think those teams that are going to be pretty good and could be players in the playoffs, I think they're going to catch their stride at some point. And maybe it's tied to health with Cincinnati and Joe Burrow. And that was a tough game back and forth against a team that's trying to, save their identity as well. They're kind of, playing from behind over the first 3 weeks and trying to chase wins. And then in the other game, I think Todd Bowles would be a hell of a lot better of a head coach if he had Tom Brady as his quarterback still than Baker Mayfield. And that's not a shot at Baker. I'm just saying that the level of play and expectation, is that position is so important. And Baker's played pretty well, over the first 3 weeks of the season, and they came in undefeated. Well, they're only, they lose one, but Philadelphia is kind of that. Gosh, they're a tough team to play against, because if they're hitting on offense, that means they're going to have a 10, 12 play drive for 88 yards. It's going to take 6.5 minutes off the clock. And if you go 3 and out as an opposing offense, you're not going to get the ball back till the second quarter.
Yep.
It might be 14-0, or it might be 10-0. And it's going to be one of those things where they're a tough team to play against. They're good on defense. They're good on special teams, but on offense, they wear you out. That offensive line is so good, and they're good at running the football. And Jalen Hurts extends so many plays. When you think you're finally going to get that offense off the field, it's another first down because he escapes and makes a throw. He escapes and uses his legs. He's kind of like that catalyst that keeps that offense going because of his athleticism.
Another one of Lubie's favorites also got a huge extension. It seemed like this was always going in this direction, although it was highly debatable. But Daniel Jones with the New York Giants, and he got this big fat extension, and they can't do anything on offense. He has been horrendous, whereas Burrow, you're expecting him. Look, he's clearly not as mobile as he would normally be, because he would usually have at least a couple of plays where he took off, and even though he runs a little bit like Bernie Kosar, he still was an effective runner, and he'll take off and make a couple of plays, that otherwise would have gone south on the Bengals. You don't see any of that from Joe Burrow, and their offensive line was suspect to begin with. But the Giants. Many people anticipated that they, would not be as good as they were last year for some reason, but I don't know that anybody anticipated they would be this bad, even though they have a victory.
Yeah, a big struggle bus going on in New York with both of those teams. So you can imagine the fans at MetLife every week just kind of, they're going, they don't know what to do. They're going crazy. And for the Dolphins, it sets up pretty good. If they somehow win on the road against Buffalo, I'm not sure what order it is, but I know it's Carolina and Giants. And one of the order
Giants and Panthers.
Okay, so it's flipped, but I mean, wow, you're talking about 6-0, and then they go to Germany at some point to play Kansas City. Within the next 2 or 3 weeks of that. So, and I know you've got the Jets coming in somewhere in that mix too. So, man, it could be exactly the way the Dolphins wanted to set up, while gaining some distance in the AFC East, because New England doesn't look like they can do anything offensively. The Jets definitely don't look like they have anything going on offense. And the Bills, if you can win that game on the road, man, you get huge separation against them. And now you got to just hold serve and continue on.
Yeah, Nathaniel Hackett probably, had very little opportunity to enjoy seeing Sean Payton get shellacked by 50, because he has more than his share of monumental problems here with Zach Wilson, who, we thought it was kind of odd that everybody thought miraculously this guy was going to be okay. And he has exhibited, if anything, it's been worse than it was even last year when he was making horrendous mistakes, because now he's doing nothing to the point where an 80-year-old Joe Willie goes on the radio and says this guy's garbage.
Yeah.
We've got to get him out of here. While
Well, the
Robert
problem
Saleh,
is who's going to take him?
Yeah.
Who's gonna trade it? They probably did him a disservice in terms of, I don't know, coming out. I didn't know if he was going to be the guy. He had a nice college career. He's a mobile quarterback. He did a lot of off-schedule things, but in the National Football League, it seems like you still have to make throws from the pocket, and you still can't give it up consistently. And right now, and I don't know if it's solely him. That offensive line is porous too, guys. I'm not going to sit here and say like it's all on the quarterback. That would have been a tough position for Aaron Rodgers to go into and manage and play at a high level of consistency that he's accustomed to in behind that offensive line.
Incredible. And they're definitely in chaos at this point, but producing nothing. I think he's averaging like 4 yards per attempt in the passing game so far, Zach Wilson, which is an ugly number under any circumstances. I mean, you could have Brian Hoyer back there and get more effective quarterback play than that. But it was amazing how the New York media and fans, I don't know about the media as much, but it seemed like the general sentiment was, oh, well, you know what? He had all that time behind Aaron Rodgers in the preseason, and he did look good in the preseason, Zach Wilson. And yet, when he's had his opportunity now to reestablish himself, it's just been an absolute catastrophic disaster. John has gone by all too quickly. Always a pleasure, my friend.
Yeah, thanks for having me,
Thank you so
guys.
much for joining us. Usually every Monday you can catch the Pigskin Playbook. But, John, did you go to shul yesterday?
I missed.
Lubie was the guy that was out.
I missed. I went for a song.
Yeah. Always a pleasure, my friend. Thanks so much. Great stuff on CBS 4 yesterday with the Dolphin game. And Dolphins and the Bills. The beat goes on here in South Florida. We are the epicenter of everything that's happening in the sporting world. It's been great. Thanks, John. Always a pleasure, my friend.
Thanks, guys. Enjoyed it.
Appreciate it.
John Congemi, the Pigskin Playbook, brought to you by Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill. And we have to make the arrangements to get down there, Lubie. I know we've been talking about this for a year and a half. But
I'm trying. Like, we're doing our part. We'll figure it out one of these.
I think it'll be simple enough, and even without Jimmy on the scene, if that has to be the way it goes for our original venture down there, we do have to get Mayo to try that. See, I'm a little reluctant to have him try this because he's going to have to. It was somebody else's suggestion that it was great. You know how he is about that stuff, Lubie. Oh, that place sucks. What are you talking about? It's like, have you ever been there, Mike? No. Oh, okay. Then, like a sports fan, this guy. Unbelievable. But what if he doesn't like it? I mean, then that would put into question his credibility, would it not?
Exactly. Yes. I have full faith in anything that we would be and have been served from Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill. I don't have any doubt.
I think you and I know good food, though. I mean, everybody does, right? You have something, whether it's at a restaurant or at home, and it's really good. I mean, you should be able to judge that for yourself, no? I mean, do you really need somebody else to tell you, oh, no, that was really good, even though you thought it was horrible? But no, the Italian Fisherman Pizza, literally, at Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill, it was just one of like a zillion choices that you have in that category, too. I mean, they had all kinds of, custom so-called pizzas. I mean, what would you call them? The idea of putting like a fried egg on a pizza was nothing I would ever come up with on my own.
I guess specialty pizzas.
Specialty pizzas, yeah. And which, are very much in vogue, in addition to everybody that's kvetching in South Florida that they can't find a good slice of old-fashioned, greasy New York pizza anywhere in town. Guess what? If you're resigned to that fact, then good. There's a million other options. But I don't think I would have gone for... the Italian Fisherman. It's kind of like when you were at Shenanigans and had the shrimp scampi pizza there.
Yeah, you're like, what the hell? But it's
conceptually, you're thinking, why don't you throw a couple of chunks of pineapple on it? Anchovies? No way, not for me. I don't need that. But no, really good stuff down there. Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill. I know there are a lot of classic places. This is destined to be one of them if it isn't already, in terms of dining opportunity, relaxation, atmosphere, the vibe. And I love that. Did you realize how many bands they wheeled in and out of there on the Saturday and Sunday when we were down there? It was like 5 different bands were playing, including Larry Calvano, the owner himself, with Dominic Congemi at the end of the night. rocking it. I mean, like they were U2, right into the classic sunset. So good spot to go to. All right, we're coming back. Brett Tessler going to join us, the agent to the stars, and our new 8 to 9:45 format here is we will then again join you on nofilter.net. And that gets underway at 10 o'clock. And then later on, Mike Mayo's Lunchbox from Prezzo's. Is that how we pronounce it? Is it Prezzo or
I
Prezzo?
guess it's Prezzo in Boca Raton, I guess is what
Prezzo in Boca Raton. Yeah. And that's, some high-end stuff, Burt Rappaport. So ought to be interesting today. I hope you have, you should get yourself for this show some permanent to-go boxes, right? Where you like just bring your own to-go boxes.
Save the planet.
And then you're ready. You don't have to worry about how you're going to get this stuff out of here. Because you usually leave with like a meal. You could go buy some local jail and feed everybody that was incarcerated with the stuff that you take, and they would be thrilled. No, it's always interesting watching you pack up. You end up with more food than equipment.
Yes, I do.
It's a lot of fun. All right, Brett Tessler, the agent to the stars, and literally to the star of the Miami Dolphins right now, Raheem Mostert. I mean, there are many stars on this team. Tua naturally is going to be the guy that garners the most attention, and he has been brilliant so far this season, with rare exception, has he not? I mean, like one or two underthrown balls out of like a zillion passes that he's thrown. Just the timing and lightning quickness where he. I mean, they always talked about, I don't want to compare him to Dan Marino. I don't think the comparisons, even just from a physical standpoint, are even close and style of play. But quick release, though, gets that ball out of there fast. And that's part of the problem with some of these other quarterbacks. They're just hanging on to the ball a split second too long. They had a great illustration of it last night with Baker Mayfield. Holds the ball for one split second too long, and it goes from being a completion to a pick. And that's how the NFL is. I mean, the quickness aspect of the way the Miami Dolphins are executing their offense can't be overlooked. And they're doing it with great precision. All right, back with more in a moment. Now that. The time. 9:21.
Folks, Tony Segreto here. Let me ask you a question. What do you look for when you go out to eat? Good food, obviously. Friendly atmosphere, not too loud, but good energy, reasonable prices, and a place where you feel comfortable. All those ingredients, no pun meant there, are hard to find unless you're talking about the Texas Roadhouse. You see, they encompass all of those attributes. Really, really good food, amazing atmosphere, good for a family, good for a date, or just a night out for yourself, and prices that will make you extremely happy. Their ribs, unmatched. Steaks, hand-cut every day. Everything, and I mean everything, is made on site, including their incredible bread. It's the one day, folks, that you can forget about low-carb diets. Trust me when I tell you, Texas Roadhouse, your restaurant, your destination when you say, where should we go and eat tonight?
From the newly renovated sports bar to the beautiful bayside views captured at the Tiki Bar, Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill has it all. Located at mile marker 104, the Big Chill also offers waterfront dining while experiencing breathtaking sunset views of the Florida Keys. It's simply the hottest spot in the Keys to cool off. That's Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill at mile marker 104 in Key Largo. For more information, call today at 305-453-9066.
The simple pleasures of this job, the way a stadium sounds when one of my players performs well on the field, the way we are meant to protect them in health and in injury. Less work, more attention, caring for them, caring for ourselves in the games too.
The agent to the stars, the one and only Brett Tessler.
Welcome back to the show. Good to have you guys with us. Hope everybody had a great holiday. Mike Lubie Lubitz broke. Did you actually go the distance on that fast, Lubie? The odds were people were taking the under on you and Shirley in terms of not eating sundown to sundown.
Doesn't even do it. I mean,
Okay, yeah.
I did it. I kept it. I'm happy to break the fast, and I'm happy to be talking lots of successful football.
Well, this is great, and we bring on the agent to the stars here, Brett Tessler, literally with. Wow, I mean, you talk about a performance. How many? You must have cashed a little bit of a fat check there. How many incentive bonuses did Raheem Mostert eclipse for the season in that one game, Brett Tessler? How are you?
What's up, guys? It's a little early in the season to be eclipsing anything, but we're definitely well on our way to approaching them. So that's a good thing.
Already.
And yeah, we've got some nice incentives in our contract that let's just say as of now, chances are looking good. So it's enjoyable. It's just so much fun to watch. I mean, a game like that where essentially as a fan by halftime, you can just completely relax, have fun, and not even worry about the possibility that you could lose a game. It's always a good feeling.
All right. After watching that game, and you obviously have a very deep inside perspective. I mean, how good are the Dolphins, and how bad is Denver?
The Dolphins are great at what they do, and you got the defense playing well now, and offensive line really seems like those guys have really gotten clicking. I mean, you look at some of the holes early in the game. Raheem had to make some hard runs where, kind of had to fight for some yards, break a couple tackles. But, by the second half, that Denver defense was tenderized. And, you look at some of those runs, you look at A-Chain, you look at, the other guy, and even, in the second half, some of Raheem's runs before they pulled him, you could really see that this defense just, the Broncos defense just appeared defeated. So, this league has been around over 100 years, and to think that the Dolphins were right in a position where they could have set an all-time record. I mean, it just shows just how absolutely remarkable it was.
I don't know that I've seen a team that much in sync in any game. I mean, you could look at the Showtime Lakers and Air Coryell, was great at what they did. You mentioned the Dolphins are very good at what they do. I don't think I've seen that kind of synchronization throughout the entire course of a ball game since watching the Globetrotters take on the Washington Generals many times.
Look, and really, you can't do it without Tua. And to his credit, he is the absolute perfect guy for this offense. And no quarterback is perfect. Obviously, every player in this league has strengths. Every player in this league has certain weaknesses. But you want to talk about tailor making an offense that plays to Tua's strengths, the timing, the accuracy, just the rhythm of that offense. And most of those great passing plays, you see those 25, 35-yard crossing passes where Tua is hitting guys in stride who are then able to take the ball all the way. A lot of that usually starts with a fake handoff to Mostert, which sort of freezes the defense. And then it's a matter of who does the defense want to try to take away? Tyreek, Jalen when he's healthy, Chosen. You saw what he did in this game. A-Chain, Raheem. I mean, there's so many different ways that this team can absolutely destroy you, where it's just it's almost getting to a point where fans need to realize that every game the rest of this season isn't going to look like the last three, and you're not always going to be going against a Denver type team that, again, just sort of, I would never say they quit, but I will say that they certainly, as the game went on, they definitely wore down. And some of the better defenses in the league, I think, would respond a little different. You watched Philadelphia last night. I was at that game. You look at that defensive line. You look at that defense as a whole. It's obviously a little different story when you're going to face someone like that. So there's no indication up to this point that anybody's been able to stop it. But I don't want fans to get too false of a sense of security after watching Sunday's game to think that they're just going to go out every Sunday and just have their way with people to that degree.
No, I mean, it's almost an unparalleled level. I mean, talking about putting 70 points on the board and then winning the game by 50. It wasn't like this was the O'Brien-Marino shootout game. You had complete dominance. And if anything, they put the 70 up all under wraps, including taking a knee when they could have established an NFL record for most points in a game by by kicking a field goal. Interesting to me, Brent. I keep flashing back when I think of Tua, and Lubie and I have had many debates about this. So, although I'm a Tua fan, I was happy when the Dolphins were able to draft him. I wasn't as familiar with Justin Herbert as possibly I should have been in deciding that this would be brilliant if somehow at number 5 in that draft the Dolphins could get Tua Tagovailoa. But I remember, always seeing this replay of the Mike McDaniel telephone call that he made from the plane somehow while flying in, I guess, on Stephen Ross's private jet to be introduced as a coach of the team. And he's telling Tua, you know what, my job is to make you the greatest quarterback and bring you to your abilities. And he's really selling Tua on the idea that he loves having him as his quarterback. And I'm thinking, this guy, right after saying that, when he realizes what he's saying, is going to want to parachute out of the plane here and not even attend the press conference. But it seems like, that this has been, a situation where the coach wasn't full of shit. He looks like he's designed an offense that is perfectly suited to this guy's skills.
No question about it. And really, it's just an amazing tribute to Mike McDaniel and to Tua. It's been a match made in heaven for both of them, because I'm not sure that Tua would be the quarterback that we're seeing in a different offense. And that's not a knock on him. That's the case of any successful quarterback in this league. You wouldn't want Tom Brady trying to run what they do in Baltimore with Lamar Jackson. And so good coaches figure out a way to put good players in good situations. And I don't think Mike McDaniel could have done a better job. And so, when the Dolphins hired McDaniel, it was a big question mark. Here's this young guy who doesn't necessarily have the greatest resume, and he looks a little different and acts a little different than what we've grown accustomed to from head coaches over the last 20, 30 years in this league. But the way it's played out for him has just been absolute best case scenario. And again, one thing about me, I'll admit if I'm not right about something, I tend to believe that in many cases I am. But in the case of Tua, no, I didn't expect that it would have succeeded to this degree. When they took him over Justin Herbert's a hell of a talent. That guy is one of the 5 most talented quarterbacks in the league as well. And so you would think at that point, or at least for the next year or two, as Herbert's starting to put up huge yards and you're seeing that arm and even seeing some of the mobility and other things, you're wondering if maybe they wouldn't have been better off with Herbert. But I think at this point, we can all agree that the answer is a resounding no. They wouldn't be better off with Herbert, because again, I don't think there's another quarterback in this league who could run this offense better than Tua. And so it was never a knock against Tua. It was more just a case of, you're going to see Herbert for the next many, many years putting up great numbers. And if they end up getting the right pieces around him in LA with the Chargers and end up getting a defense that's up to the caliber of that offense, then that could be a team that could be very competitive. But you know what? Maybe it just worked out where the Chargers got the right guy for them. The Dolphins got the right guy for them. And it's a win-win, because, again, I don't think there's any quarterback that could run things as absolutely perfectly in this system as we're seeing Tua do.
Man, I think, Mike Williams, the Chargers receiver, is he out for the season now, torn an ACL. So, Herbert's, again, experiencing many ways to be compromised, including playing for Staley, who has a penchant for making calls that lose ball games, or at least put his team in serious jeopardy, even when they win. We were talking earlier, and you would have experience with this. I tend to think it's more coincidental than fact that, making a big amount of money all of a sudden in a contract. And we might have seen this even in hockey with Sergei Bobrovsky. It either puts so much pressure on a guy. We have a couple of quarterbacks. Burrow's been injured, so I think we can give him a pass-a-roo on getting the giant extension and then not playing anywhere near what he appeared, to be last year. Daniel Jones, though, what was this? Is this looming as a large mistake, in your opinion? They doled out all this cash for this guy, $160 million. And right now, getting zero results from Daniel Jones after what was a promising season last year that earned them this cash.
Well, as an agent, I'm always in favor of seeing any player get paid.
Yeah.
And regardless over time, whether it be for injury, whether it be for effectiveness, sometimes these things work, sometimes they don't. And I would just say in the case of Daniel Jones, that was a team that was sort of in a peculiar position because, there's just some quarterbacks in this league where it sort of puts the team in purgatory where he's not that guy. He's not Patrick Mahomes. He's not Joe Burrow. He's not Aaron Rodgers. He's not that clear-cut, transcendent talent that has proven time and time again that he is the guy. And then you've got a large majority of other quarterbacks in this league who opportunity after opportunity have proven that they're not the guy. And I'm not going to mention names, but there could be a guy in our division that fits that description. And so with that being said, you end up getting some of these guys like a Daniel Jones, as you mentioned, like a Kirk Cousins in Minnesota, and some of these other quarterbacks where they're simply too good to just turn the page on. And some of those guys have been able to go on and still win Super Bowls. And in other cases, they're able to put up decent statistics. They're able to win a fair amount of regular season games, but it never necessarily correlates to the ultimate postseason success of being able to win a Super Bowl. So look, it's a tough league and things change from year to year. Very few players have that type of consistency from year to year, like a Rodgers, a Brady, Mahomes. I mean, you're talking maybe three of the greatest all time to ever play the sport here. So, when you start comparing other quarterbacks to those guys, it's awfully hard to measure up. But look, there's a reason why the Giants drafted Daniel Jones as high as they did. Throughout the years, he's shown an ability to make some plays and to win some games for them. And so then you come up on his contract and you're sort of at a point of, what do you do? Because if you're not drafting high in this league, you're not going to be able to get that Joe Burrow type guy, that CJ Stroud type guy. And, unless you're San Francisco, you end up getting Brock Purdy at the end of the draft. But just, for the most part, in this league, if you've got a quarterback that has shown you that they can win games for you, it's just hard to turn the page because what's the alternative? And so that's kind of what you might have seen happen when the Giants extended Daniel Jones. He's one of those guys where I think he's just too good to move off of. And hopefully for their case, he'll continue to improve and the team will improve. And maybe he could be a guy that could win them a Super Bowl one day.
Not exactly Mr. Excitement, Daniel Jones. I'm with Lubie on that, although I kind of find myself rooting for him because I thought, and I had watched, of course, the highlight reel, which, is always a glowing interpretation of how a guy, will play once he turns pro. And, he looked fine to me coming out of college. And I thought, okay, this guy's being undersold a little bit. He might turn into a real quality pro. But, I was wondering, I mean, have you seen it where, a guy gets a boatload of money and then all of a sudden goes into the tank because either the pressure or, some kind of, I can't imagine Daniel Jones is experiencing complacency, but, did you find that to be, not unusual, as Tom Jones would say, that some guys they take a step backwards when they get the cash?
And if you watch Daniel Jones every year in his career, you've seen him develop. I mean, I watched him his rookie year. I represented one of his starting linemen. And obviously it was a lot for him to take in, making the transition from where did he come from, Duke, to starting for the Giants. And so over time, you've really seen things slow down for him. You've seen him develop. You've seen him progress. And for some quarterbacks, it happens very quickly in this league, like day one, and like in the case of an Andrew Luck or, some of the other great quarterbacks who've had early success in their career. And then, you've seen guys like Rich Gannon, Jim Plunkett throughout the years, guys who were considered big disappointments early in their career and then they just hang around long enough, and just slowly but surely they end up reaching their peak, and teams are able to win with them. So you just never know. And that's, again, anytime any team gives any player any contract, there's always a certain degree of risk involved, and there's always a slight gamble involved. Obviously, again, you've got health involved, which nobody can really control. And then effectiveness, especially coming from the quarterback position, has a lot to do with the players around you. It has to do with how the guys up front are playing for you. It has to do with the weapons you have to work with. And then it has to do with the kind of defense you have that can bail you out of certain situations. So I don't think any player that gets a contract just sort of mails it in at that point. These guys are all competitive guys, and there's some guys that have better seasons than others. There's some guys that have a down year in any given season, but it often relates to health and really who those guys have to work with.
Jamarcus Russell syndrome, I guess, is what we're talking about here. Gets a boatload of cash, never, works for it. And, it was a lesson, a stinging lesson learned once again by a Raider franchise that seems to be snakebit in that regard. All right, one final thing. Brett Tessler, you have a huge game here. I can't believe it. We wait, it seems like forever for the NFL season to get underway. And as of Sunday's games, we'll be just a shade under with the 17th game, a quarter of the way through the season already. And yet this game has so much, in terms of playoff and championship implications, the Dolphins and the Buffalo Bills, because the Bills, after an horrendous performance in week 1, have come back to 2-1. The Dolphins rolling in there at 3-0 off their best performance maybe in franchise history overall. In terms of the outcome. And, everything's on the line here. AFC East seems to boil down to now Dolphins and Bills. You'll have early control of the division, whoever comes out with the outcome and the win in this game. Dolphins substantial if they win it at 4-0 versus 2-2. And the Bills, if they win it, 3-1 with a heads-up victory. So what do you think? I mean, what are you anticipating coming up this week in Buffalo?
So this is as exciting of a matchup as you're probably going to see all season, not just for the Dolphins, but just as a fan of NFL football. You've got a great interdivision rivalry, and you've got two teams that are playing great football. And despite what happened to the Bills the first game of the season, anybody who's been following AFC East football for the last few years knows the Bills are always going to be an incredibly tough out. And Josh Allen's just still one of the best quarterbacks in the league. And, he's got a little bit of wild horse in him. And so that first game of the season, it kind of was good to see him get all that out of his system. And you've seen him really settle down and look as good as he's ever looked here these last couple of weeks. So the Bills are an incredibly well-coached team. Very tough defense. Matt Milano, one of the best linebackers in the league. They're a tough team. They're a smart team. They're a talented team. They're, certainly one of the top, I would think, few contenders in the AFC. So this is really a great opportunity, because if people questioned Denver and people questioned where Russell Wilson's at in his career, and if people question the toughness or the heart of that defense in Denver, they're not going to be able to question those same things with Buffalo. So if the Dolphins win this game, they're going to have to earn it. And if they do earn it, then as a fan, this gives you a very accurate assessment of where this team really is in the entire NFL and what they really could expect moving forward.
One of our great fans and listeners here on the chat line says he started Mostert in fantasy football last week because he lost Nick Chubb. So turned out to be a fortunate move. All right, incentives kicking in, Brett Tessler. I'm sure you were feeling very good about that 4-touchdown performance by your client on the Miami Dolphins, Raheem Mostert, who's really been a standout. Player of the week considerations, or does that go to Tua? Who's going to grab that?
Well, they sort of take turns, as we talked about, setting each other up. And in many cases, the run sets up the pass on this team. And then And then you've seen instances like this last game where the pass sets up the run, and that certainly was the case against New England as well. So it's certainly great anytime you see a client having success. And as we've discussed many, many times throughout the years, when it happens to be a client who's overcome so much adversity, and a guy who came into this league undrafted, a guy who was cut 7 times, a guy who's been through some very, very serious injuries in his career, to see him here in his 9th season, playing at a higher level than just about anybody in the league, regardless of position. It's just as good of a feeling as I'm sure you could imagine.
If he was younger, I mean, he would eclipse even Rocky Blair, man. I mean, the only thing this kid hasn't done is come back from Vietnam, with a leg injury and, and have the kind of career that he's had so far. Great stuff there. Do your kids, when they go to greet Raheem when he comes over to the house, do they bounce off him like these tacklers? You might have to put a fence around a pool. I mean, if this guy's walking around, it's fantastic to see. All right, Brett, always a pleasure, my friend. Glad we all had a good week watching football and and prospering from being Dolphin fans. And thanks so much for being with us.
All right, guys, good catching up.
Thanks.
All right, thanks a lot, Brett Telstor, the agent of the Stars here. All right, Lubie, I think that went well. You think the fans will catch on, or you think they'll figure that we just disappeared again by not being there at 7 o'clock? Because I like to say the clock start. I think it's going to work out well. And now we've sort of condensed everything together here. So we have an opportunity to, just roll through a series of shows as opposed to, go do something else. And now you have to walk the dog, right? I got the notice yesterday that it's 8 years since we adopted Skippy.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, 8 years, Skippy.
How's Skippy doing? I haven't heard.
He's doing all right. He's hanging in there. Right? He's a little, he's old. I mean, they told us he was 3. I think he was at least 7. And so, you're looking at a 15-year-old dog.
Yeah, Monte, you.
Yeah. No, they always, unfortunately, I don't see the need to BS people. I guess certain dogs, if they were known to be older, wouldn't get adopted as quickly. Yeah. Certainly, if you were witness to Skippy's actual behavior, if he wasn't sedated when we picked him up, you would have been reluctant to embrace the idea that this was going to be your dog of choice. But no, he's doing well. He's a happy man, young man. Well, old man now. But no, he's doing all right. All right. That was great being with you guys. 8 till 9:45 now for the Defo Show. And then 10 o'clock we're on nofilter.net. And that thing runs all day on what I think is an excellent platform there. They're real good with social media. So hopefully we're continuing to broaden our horizons. How'd it go to a couple of days that you were doing it?
It went fine. They posted one of my things when I ranted about Colorado, and I ended up being very right. So I'm very excited about that.
Was that like an obvious one? I mean, the whole bandwagon jumping on Colorado and how Deion Sanders was this brilliant coach and taking nothing away from what he's accomplished so far, which has been great. I mean, Jackson State and then first 3 games there with Colorado, good stuff. But once you have to, it's like everybody has a fight plan, a game plan until they get hit the first time. Like Mike Tyson thing. And, you get socked in the face all of a sudden. You're thinking, maybe I got to rethink this. But that was a serious bludgeoning. There was a guy yelling and screaming every time Oregon scored. He must have laid the, 23 points, 21?
So he had Oregon. Oh, good for him.
Yeah. So, I mean, you need the first 3 touchdowns just to get even in the game. And then there's always a chance that somehow they put up some bogus kind of score there. But that didn't happen until the very end when the thing was more than determined in terms of the outcome versus the spread. All right. We'll see you guys tomorrow on this program, later on No Filter. And then from Prezzo in Boca Raton, the Mike Mayo Lunchbox Show gets underway at 12 o'clock. And should be some good food on the table there and an interesting dining experience that we could share with you later on South Florida Live and Let's Eat South Florida. I was just reading a thing, though, a couple of things in the New York Post. I don't know if we'll have time to bring it up today there, depending on how the show goes. But imagine when Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce, they went to a restaurant in Kansas City after the game, and they had to close the restaurant. So what happened was, Taylor Swift, there were people dining there. I mean, this obviously after that ball game was, maybe sometime in the early evening.
Yep.
So it turned out, and the place was called Here's a headline. Swift clears the field, empties eatery for NFLer date. Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce enjoyed a post-game meal Sunday at a local Kansas City restaurant. All right, the place was called Prime Social Rooftop.
Okay.
Okay, and they're normally open on the weekends. I'm not sure about a Sunday, but like they're open till like 12 o'clock on Friday and Saturday.
Okay.
Close maybe 10 o'clock on Sunday, but they stayed open till 2 a.m. And it turned out that they bought out the entire restaurant.
Oh, wow.
So people were dining, and they told everybody, hey, all of your meals are paid for, but you have to get up and leave right now. And I was thinking, man, imagine you posted that on like Let's Eat South Florida.
Oh my
Like
God.
that happened to you. Would you be happy about it, or would you be absolutely, psychotic that this was something that should never happen? Like, who gives a fuck about Taylor Swift?
I feel like Let's Eat would have a field day with that. I'd be fine if you let me order what I want and take it home, but I feel like Let's Eat would have a field day with that.
No, I don't think it was like you're going to order something now and take it home. I mean, I guess if you were in the middle of your meal, you could box it up. That they must have had a massive run on doggy bags there and packing up all of this food. It probably looked like you after one of those lunchbox shows. But how would you feel about that? I mean, you're in the middle of dinner in this fancy schmancy place, and all of a sudden they tell you, look, your dinner's paid for, but you got to get the fuck out of here.
Yeah, that's douchey. I don't know. I
a little weird, isn't it? I mean, come on. And yet, how do you handle it? I mean, with the the amount of attention that surrounds Taylor Swift. Look, this is like almost every clip of NFL action leads with Taylor Swift in there cheering for Kelce.
I know.
As the Kansas City Chiefs were annihilating. Who was it that they played? They played a very weak opponent this week.
They play the Commanders.
Yeah.
The Bills played the Commanders. I'm trying to.
Anyway, but I mean, so after the game.
The Bears, of course.
The Bears, the Bears are look to be hopeless this year.
Yeah.
And so a very dull game. And then, all throughout the ball game, all you saw was Taylor Swift. And she was more vulgar in some of the things that she was saying and cheering on Travis Kelce and the Chiefs than Fireman Ed. I mean, it's like, wow, a whole nother side of this woman's personality. Yet it's captured the imagination. And that was a funny thing somebody was commenting on social media I saw, where, all the talk on the sports shows was about how the Cowboys lost to Arizona and how the Jets suck. And then, of course, Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce. And nobody really, I mean, it was a secondary consideration. The Dolphins putting up 70.
70, yeah.
On what should have been a desperate Sean Payton and the Denver Broncos coming in here at 0-2, knowing that your season is officially and somewhat, even though mathematically still a possibility, that essentially it's over at 0-3, even in a 17-game season in the NFL.
I mean, people pick the Broncos. Look, I think Mark Lawrence picked the Broncos, and he wasn't. Oh, you weren't with us. Yeah, I think Mark Lawrence picked the Broncos.
Well, that was an unfortunate selection to
I
get
didn't
on.
mock him. Like in the moment, I was like, yeah, you don't know the Dolphins. This is like let down territory. The Broncos have to win. Peyton's hearing it. Like you don't know with the Dolphins. They had just sort of struggled versus the Patriots and almost lost versus an Patriots team. Like I didn't mock Lawrence when he made that pick. Like it looks weird now.
Well, it doesn't look too swift. I mean, your guy gets beaten by 50. All right. On that note, we'll leave you, man. Mark will make a strong comeback. I thought the Dolphins would cover that 7 points. At home in those late September games, October games, it's brutal. 1 o'clock game there. Remember Stephen Ross was screaming that one year that he wanted all 1 o'clock games. That there was, something to be said for that. Even though most people just harpooned him as being, an uninformed idiot about what really goes on in the NFL. All right, we'll see you next time. We'll see you tomorrow, 8 o'clock, post time for the show. Spread the word. And we'll see you next time as we leave you know that.
The time.
It's 9:53.
Let's go to eat a damn snack. Look what they done to my soul.